It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of July 2nd, 2003. We got 4 films to look at today, so let's not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and jump on that into it. And Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, coming 12 years after the last movie. Some might say completely unnecessary because Terminator 2 kind of wrapped itself up pretty good, but was a big global phenomenon, cultural phenomenon, box office phenomenon, so at some point you think, yeah, they're going to make a sequel out of this again, that continue to make this into a trilogy, and thus here we are with Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, in which we have Skynet sending a TX, played by Kristanna Loken, who was a highly advanced Terminator, back in time to ensure the rights of the rise of the machines by killing top members of the future human resistance, as John Connor, now played by Nick Stahl's location is unknown. The Resistance also sends back a reprogrammed T-850, Arnold Schwarzenegger, to protect John and his wife at the time, I think, Claire Danes. And let's just say if you're looking for a film that's on the same level as Terminator 2, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, prepare to be very disappointed, because, yeah, this film is definitely a step down from that movie, but considering what has come after Terminator Salvation, this thing ain't the worst thing Terminator has done anymore. I mean, Terminator Genesis is still terrible, so is Dark Fate, but this was, at the time, this was seen as a weak sequel in general, mostly because, like I said, it felt unnecessary, it felt pointless. Terminator 2 wrapped everything up, they stopped Judgment Day, but in this movie, no. They only postponed Judgment Day. Judgment Day is still going to happen, and, okay, way to make the last movie completely pointless, and all to have Arnold Schwarzenegger look ridiculous at times in here. I mean, come on. The sparkling glasses, like, yeah, it's ridiculous, but like I said, Terminator Genesis and Terminator Dark Fate have done much worse to this series than anyone, I think, could have ever imagined, and, excuse me, and it was notable for a couple reasons. This was the last movie that Arnold Schwarzenegger was the lead star in, before, of course, he eventually became the governor of California. He had a cameo in Around the World in 80 Days, but we won't get to that one until the next year. But this was a big deal for a number of different reasons. A new Terminator movie, the last movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger in it before he became a politician. And, yeah, there was a little bit of excitement for it because it was the sequel to Terminator 2. And while it is definitely a step down from the last movie, like I said, it still beats the crap of what they've done with the Terminator in the last couple of movies. I mean, it's a film that is definitely a letdown, but there's still stuff in here that is kind of fun to watch. Like, there's still a lot of fun aspects to it. It is still rated R, so you still get a lot of good fun action sequences and good over-the-top violence. I mean, the way he kills off the TX in this movie is pretty hilarious. Like, that's my favorite scene in the whole movie, where they get to the final scene and the Terminator's destroying the TX, and he goes like, "You're terminated," and the TX just has this look on her face like, "Oh no!" like she's like you look at like the way they shot this, it's just like, I don't know if it was intentionally supposed to be funny or not, but that look on her face, like she looks like a sad puppy that's about to get killed, just like, "Please don't hurt me," like. Stuff like that makes this movie worthwhile for just how ridiculously stupid it is. Even that scene I was talking about earlier where, you know, he puts on the sparkling glasses. Like, it's a silly scene, but it's kind of funny at the same time how ridiculously stupid it is, and how much they really thought that was going to work. But, like I said, it's a film that has a lot more flaws to it than the other movies do. And like I said, it's a film that certainly is looking a lot better considering what they've done after Terminator Salvation, which we'll get to Terminator Salvation towards the end of the decade. But it's definitely a step down from the last 2 movies, but, I mean, honestly, it's not as bad as I think people let on. It's a film that's just kind of like, okay, it's another sequel, it's really unnecessary, but I guess we'll take it. I mean, it could be a whole lot worse, and as the series would go on, it would get worse, but, yeah, not much more to say about that one. That's Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. So let's go ahead and take a look at another sequel that was kind of an underperformer this weekend. Reese Witherspoon returning to the role that made her a star in Legally Blonde 2, Red, White, and Blonde. So once again, we have Reese Witherspoon, who is now a sassy post-grad after graduating from Harvard in the last movie. She's all about animal rights. In fact, she puts her nuptial plans on hold to head to Washington, D.C. to get an anti-animal testing bill passed
Her building's doorman, played by Bob Newhart, quickly shows her the ways in working through our nation's capital. And also Sally Fields is in here as well. Luke Wilson is back. They bring back Jennifer Coolidge. They bring in people like Regina King as well. Bruce McGill. Like, there's a lot of talent in this film. Unfortunately, it suffers from sequelitis. Everything that was that made the last movie work as well as it did, that's all gone. And this is just a typical sequel where all the characters are back to being as dumb as they were in the beginning of the first movie. And, like, there's nothing about if they have to learn their lessons again. It's just like, come on, man. Are we really doing this? Like, are we really going to do this again? How about instead of doing the same movie again and dumbing all the characters down, how about expand on these characters? Give us a reason why this needs to be a franchise. Let's make the sequel where, you know, let's improve, let's advance the characters, evolve the characters more. You know, bring more people in there. You know, make this character a role model. But nope, we gotta go back down to where she was before. It's like nothing she learned from the last movie is returning in this film, and it's a typical comedy sequel, and a bad one at best, and a bad one at the worst. I mean, it's a film that is so lazy in so many different ways. They waste so many of the great talent they have involved in here. You know, Jennifer Coolidge has got to be the same character she is in the American Pie movies. She's like, oh, you look like the 4th of July, and that makes me want a hot dog real bad. It's like, we get it. You're the MILF from American Pie. Can you advance your characters a little bit here, please? Please? But no, not in this movie. Not with the director they have here, who I'm pretty sure has not done anything of noteworthiness, as far as I'm concerned, because it's not the same director from the last movie. Actually, no, I take that back. Now I'm even more upset because this is the same director that did Kissing Jessica Stein. It's just like, what the hell happened to you, man? Like, you made a great movie with that film, and now you've just kind of reduced yourself to making a film like this. Like, I can't believe I didn't figure out that this was the same director. Like, you can't even tell that this was made by the same director who made Kissing Jessica Stein. That's the problem with the movie here. It's just a film that is just so relegated to just be the typical sequel, you know. All the characters who advance their characters throughout the course of the first movie, we've got to dumb them down again, and they have to relearn the same lesson over again. We got to do the same jokes over and over again. It's just like, it gets old really, really fast, and there's just nothing of value in this movie whatsoever. And I get why they wanted to do it, because the first film was a big success, and this one was a big success too, even though it got thrashed by critics, and they tried to do numerous continuations of this. There was like a TV pilot, I think, for MTV at one point. They did like a direct-to-video spin-off where it was just like a short teen version of it. They were talking about doing a sequel for a number of years that never got off the ground, and now they're doing a new show for Amazon that was just announced in the last couple of weeks. But in this case, this is just a film that is just, it's obviously what you think it's going to be. It's a sequel that is literally nothing but rehashing the same stuff from the first movie, dumbing down the characters again, and it's a typical comedy sequel, and it's just not a good one. So, Legally Blonde 2, yeah, I'd say avoid this one like the plague. If you're going to watch either one of these movies, stick with the first one. But with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is a film that was one of those movies that was heavily, heavily affected by the success of Finding Nemo. That's DreamWorks' latest animated feature, Sinbad: Legend of the Seven Seas. So, of course, this is the story of, you have Brad Pitt playing the voice of Sinbad, who's a pirate who travels the seas with his dog and his loyal crew, along with this woman named Marina, who is the fiancée of her childhood friend Prince Proteus, played by Ray Fiennes. And they're trying to recover the stolen Book of Peace from Eris, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, to save Proteus from accepting Sinbad's death sentence. The film blends elements from the 1001 Nights, as well as classic mythology, and like I said before, kind of like with Rugrats Go Wild, this was a film that kind of crashed and burned at the box office. I mean, for a film that had a budget of $60 million and only bringing in $80 million, which led to a $125 million loss following a string of films that nearly bankrupted the company, not a good sign for DreamWorks Animation as a whole, especially considering that 2D animation was just getting more expensive. I mean, computer animation was getting more and more expensive too, but when you spend when you only grossing $80 million for a film that barely makes $60 million, and that barely costs $60 million, and you suffer a loss of $125 million, that's not a good sign for a company that 2 years ago changed the game with Shrek. And because of this was the last film to use traditional animation, and essentially they went all in on computer animation, which turned their fortunes upside down and turned it back into what it was for the Shrek films. Of course, starting with the next Shrek movie that we'll get to next year, but it's a film that is just, it's one of those animated movies that doesn't get the proper respect it deserves. From an animation standpoint, it's a gorgeous looking film. You can see where the money went into. I mean, it's a visually impressive film to look at. They do a good job of meshing the 2D animation style. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. And, you know, it's great on that front. The CG, definitely hit and miss. I mean, the CG is the one thing that I will say that over 20 years later, the CG has not really held up all that well. I mean, there are times when it can look pretty cool, but even then, there are definitely a lot of flaws to it. You can easily see right off the get-go. The voice cast overall is very good. Brad Pitt, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Michelle Pfeiffer, they play their parts very well. The movie as a whole is a fun film. It's just unfortunately part of a time when traditional animation was dying out at one point, is in terms of the movies, and computer animation was slowly but surely becoming the norm. And Finding Nemo, I think, really was the thing that woke everybody up and realized that computer animation is the future. Especially considering that it was still making more than Sinbad did on its first week. On the first weekend of Sinbad alone, I think it was still making, Finding Nemo, I think, still made like $11 million. Yeah, $11 million, and it was still hanging around after 6 weeks. So, yeah, you can see why there was a huge wake-up call around this time for studios to either advance to CG animation or fall forever, pretty much. But this movie has a lot of flaws to it, but I still think it's a fun film overall. One that definitely should get more attention than it deserves. It's bombed, but unfortunately it wasn't because of the movie itself. You can also say the marketing was pretty bad too. So I watched some of the trailers for this, and getting the footage here, and those trailers do not hold up very well. Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, and this movie have a lot in common because they had really bad marketing to them. But unlike Ruby Gillman, this was well promoted, but Ruby Gillman was not. They just kind of dumped it out there and hoped for the best, which failed miserably on that front. But this is a film that got the promotion it needed, but just couldn't live up to the box office potential of something like Shrek or even Spirit the year before. But it should not take away from the fact that the movie is still a good film. It's one you should definitely give a shot at. I think you'll really, really appreciate it more nowadays. A lot of it still holds up very well. CG not so much, but everything else, I think it works very well on its own. So I highly recommend Sinbad Legend of the Seven Seas. So moving on to the last movie, Swimming Pool. So this is an erotic thriller where you have Charlotte Rampling playing a British crime novelist who travels to her publisher's upmarket summer home in southern France to seek solitude in order to work on her new book. However, the arrival of this woman, Julie, played by Ludovine Sagnier, who claims to be the publisher's daughter, induces complications in a subsequent crime. Both lead characters are bilingual. The film's dialogue is a mixture of French and English. And this director is Francois Ozon, who I've never heard of him before. He's probably made movies that I probably have heard of, but just the only one that I can see right off the bat is 8 Women, which was a film that came out last year, which I knew about, but never really covered in my 2002 Leftovers episode. But it's a good erotic thriller. It was a film that was actually supposed to be NC-17, but they cut it down because of the box office potential of the film, and because NC-17 is like the death nail for the MPAA, even back then. But you know, it's a film that is very, very intriguing. It is very interesting. It's very sexy. It's a very intense, dramatic thriller. It's one of those erotic thrillers that really shows why this is a good genre. Movies like this, Henry and June, Basic Instinct, like this is one of those films that really works because the acting is so good, and it uses the sex not just as a thing for exploitive TNA. It actually plays a part in the storyline, and it works out really well. It's a very intense film, a very engaging film, a film that has a ton of great people involved in it. Charles Dance is also in here as well. Great actor. You've seen in a lot of stuff before. It's a really good movie, man. I can't recommend it enough. If you haven't seen Swimming Pool, definitely see Swimming Pool. It's definitely worth a watch. And so with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. We'll jump into the next week of July with 2 notable blockbusters. One that was a big hit, one not so much. Of course, that is Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, the first film in that series, and Sean Connery in the last movie of his career, the last live-action movie of his career, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Take a guess on which one was the successful film. But we'll take a look at those on the next episode. But until then, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time. And until then, as always, take care.